Hey guys, welcome back to Twinstrology. I'm Marla, and I want to talk to you today about what is happening in the collective energy and the polarization of the energies that we're feeling. And I want to try to explain to you how what's happening with the collective is nothing but one giant twin flame journey. And if I can help you to see the similarities between that and this, and how one is just a macrocosm of the other, then I'm hoping you're going to realize that you already have the skills that you need to help bridge this division that we're experiencing. So, we're dealing with polarities, right? And I'm talking about in America, we have two primary political parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, and they are completely divided and they are in two different polarities. That's just like twin flames who first meet each other, they're in two different polarities. Their energy isn't really mixing, right? Now, when twins try to come together at the beginning, usually it doesn't work out for most of them. Because of this polarized energy, it keeps pushing them apart. And what does a lot of that due to? Well, it's due to our programming and our projections. That's really what's creating the polarization. It's part of our ego that is creating that because we know that we're all one. But what you're doing is you're acting like a mirror for the other, right? The divine masculine, divine feminine, they're mirroring so that it helps the person see what the projection is. And when you go through these different steps of healing and you're removing programming, then as the program's removed, you no longer need that projection in your experience. Okay, and very often, there's common ground even in the polarization. So I want to talk about this card. This card is called Communication, and it's from the Divine Masculine, Divine Feminine Reunited deck by Christabel Jessica. And I can't remember the artist who did these cards, but I'm going to try to put her name in the comments because I really love the images on these cards, and she deserves credit for them. This one is one of my favorites, and I've used it before in other readings because it's a perfect example of the twin flame dynamic and the projections that we experience. So down here on the table, we have this card with a number on it. And we can look at this energy on the table as being a neutral energy. Now, from the man's perspective, he's seeing it has a 9, and from the woman's perspective, she's seeing it has a 6. So which one is right? Well, they're both right, right? Because from their perspective, that's what they're seeing. But what's inhibiting them is their programming and their projections. And because of that, it's very difficult for them to see the other person's perspective. Same thing with what's happening politically, right? Because everything that's happening, really it just carries kind of a neutral charge. And then it's our perspective and our projections that create the miscommunication. And it's really intense right now with the miscommunication because there's so many triggers happening to help awaken the collective that it's really difficult for people to meet across the table to see the other person's point of view because all these projections are coming up to the forefront right now. But that's good. The purpose of what's happening is to trigger each other because just like a twin needs to trigger their partner to see what their projections are, so in this macrocosm that is the collective energy, people need to be triggered because without the triggering, You can't see what it is you're projecting. And if you look at the majority of issues that are happening, I'm not going to use Republican and Democrat. I'm going to use the left and the right. I feel that's more appropriate. Things are basically a polarization of the other, right? Like one party is pro-life, one party is right to choose or pro-abortion, but it's like a split down the middle of that issue. Again, when you first meet your twin, you're going to have a lot of things happening like that. And it's going to seem like, wow, this person is so different from me. I don't know how we could ever get together because, we don't really have any common ground there. But what happens? Well, you heal, you remove the program, and your energies start attracting to each other because you're removing the issues that are polarizing you. Now, let's look at the right and the left and talk about how the right and the left relates to the divine feminine and the divine masculine energies. Okay, now again, I'm trying to present this in a neutral way. I'm not trying to create any kind of judgment here. So if we look at, let's say, the right and the conservative party, and we looked at kind of the classic ideas of what we think that party represents, right? Like capitalism, entrepreneurship, less government, less social programs. That correlates more to the divine masculine energy. And if we were to look at what's classically considered left wing, that would historically connect more with the divine feminine because that is more about social justice and social programming. It goes back to our perceptions of what we think these parties represent. But I think you understand what I'm saying, how they're kind of historically would be more aligned with those energies. But actually what's happened now is that has flipped, and it's the divine feminine energy that is aligned more with the right or the conservative party, and it's the divine masculine energy that's aligned more with the left-wing liberal camp right now. And there's a reason for that, because we need to see both sides. We need to understand and experience both sides in order to bridge the differences. So it makes sense that the energies have kind of flipped, so we get to experience the other. If I use myself as an example here, my whole life, I was a Democrat. I considered myself very liberal, and I could not stand conservative people, to be honest. I just didn't get that energy at all. And then I started to change in 2016, and it was actually on election day. I remember everything pretty vividly because I had supported Hillary Clinton when she ran for New York Senate. I had supported her first attempt to run for president, and I was looking forward to voting for her for president in 2016. And yet I woke up on election day and I couldn't vote for her. It just didn't feel right. And I ended up, at that point in my journey, I couldn't vote for Trump either. So I ended up voting for neither one of them. I voted for somebody else. But it was a very strange day because I had every intention leading up to that day to vote for her because I had supported her as a candidate. And so from 2016 till now, I have seen my own energy flip a little bit as I began to integrate more of what the right and the conservative party are bringing to the table. And so by doing that, what I've done is I'm trying to create balance in myself because I already understood the left. I needed to understand more of the right so that I could see what is good about both sides. Sorry for the interruption here, but as I was editing the video, I realized that I forgot to say something very important that I meant to mention. And that is, I don't want you to get confused about the masculine and feminine relating to one party or the other and your union. What I mean by that is if you're the divine feminine, it doesn't mean that you're on the right and your divine masculine is on the left. Because for most of you that are following me, you've reached more of a balanced state. So chances are you and your twin are going to be more in a balanced energy and not polarized politically anymore. Although, if you're new to this journey or you have some deep wounds around this, you may still be working that out. But more than likely, you and your twin both will be aligned more to either the right or to the left. And you'll be on the same side, if you will. So I don't want you to get confused by that. It's more like it's not twin flame pairs that are polarized any longer, but it's just more about the twin flame collective even might have some polarization. Okay, so let's take a look at the divine feminine first and why I'm saying that the divine feminine is more aligned with the right or the conservative party right now. That's because what's happening in, at least in the spiritual community, for the people that feel more aligned with the conservative party is they're needing to trust in something that isn't visible right now. Because those people, those are the conspiracy theorists, those are the people that are talking about human trafficking and child enslavement and adrenochrome and all the cabal stuff and all the people that are connected to the cabal. Okay, that's requiring those people to trust in things that aren't seen because we don't really have a lot of proof of those things right now. And they're seeing beyond the veil, they're seeing the things that aren't seen yet. Okay, and so this, the divine feminine and this right side, they're holding the ascension energies, the higher frequencies of this higher connection. And they're needing to trust, right? Now, isn't this just like the divine feminine in the twin flame journey? They have to believe in something that's unseen. They have to hold the trust that their twin flame connection is real and it's not some illusion, even though they're not seeing records of this being brought forth in the 3D. There's also this element of needing to speak out to and finding your voice, because even though both sides are speaking out, when we're talking about these things that aren't so provable in the 3D, okay, people are really having to put themselves out there because other people are going to come in and they're going to put you down and they're going to mock you. It's very much the energy of being persecuted has a divine feminine, like for being a witch, for example, and being persecuted and oftentimes executed for being different and for speaking out about things in the supernatural realm. So this can be very triggering for people that are holding that energy and they're really needing to overcome their fear and find their voice. So, we have to respect people for trying to come out against stuff that other people can't see or aren't ready to acknowledge yet. Now, again, like I said, don't get into, right and wrong. There's no right and wrong in which is holding which. So the divine masculine is connected more to the left and the liberal energy right now, because this group is more focused on what is happening in the 3D realm. They're like, show me the science. You guys are saying all this, show me the science. You're saying people are drinking adrenochrome. Well, where's the evidence of this? And because they're not seeing it, it doesn't really exist for them. They need the physical evidence to believe in something. They're pushing away what doesn't seem possible to create in a tangible way. Now, this is very much like the divine masculine, right? Who is more like, oh, well, divine feminine, you were telling me all these things, but I don't really see a chance for us to develop this relationship in 3D because I've got all these things going on in my life. So, yeah, I feel a little bit of that, but unless I really have proof, then I'm not really going to come forward. So I'm being a little bit funny about it, but you get my idea. That's because the people that are holding this energy are the grounding energies. They're the ones that are focused on what's happening in this reality. When I say, they're saying, show me something that's real. Okay, they're saying, I can't see all these things that you're talking about, which seem like conspiracy theories, but what I can see is that there's a lot of social injustice happening right now. And so I'm going to concern myself with what I can see, with what's tangible to me. And that's where I'm going to create my change. So you see, we can't really look at this side's right and this side's wrong, because both sides are doing what needs to happen in order to create unity. Just like in the twin flame journey, the divine feminine part of the couple holds the ascension energies. The divine masculine part of the couple holds the grounding energies. And this is what creates the bridge through the dimensions to actually bring the unity. And that's what we're doing on a grand scale. We're just creating this bridge. So both sides are only trying to do the things that they believe are right. But what they're doing is based on, their reality, which is based on their programming, and it's coming through their projections. So that's why there's this odd energy, this polarity, these triggers. Well, because you guys are twin flames, you know what happens, right? It's through this miscommunication, the arguments, the running and chasing, that the healing happens. And when the program starts dissolving, they get closer and closer and closer. Then you get to the point where there's not a lot of programming left. Then you start really merging. You stop feeling division with that person and you start feeling union. And you can develop that sense of unity so strongly that it really doesn't matter what's going on in the real world with your twin. Even if you're fighting, even if you're at this stage in communication, you know in your heart, well, we're one. And we're just having a disagreement and we have to get over it. And then this energy is going to balance out and everything's going to be fine. Now, can you tell yourself about this and what's happening in the collective energies? We have to purge this out because we can't get to union as long as we're holding all of this projection. It's like pushing each other away, pushing each other away. But eventually we gotta find unconditional love if we keep going down this road. So we have to clear a lot of things around unconditional love. Some of this being fear, intolerance, ignoring situations, and getting caught up in self-righteousness. And instead focusing on reminding ourselves all the time, well, we're one. There is union here, there is oneness here, and that the issues that we're both fighting over is really the same issue underneath, and we both kind of want to go to the same place. We just have different ways of getting there. So how can we create this balance? Let's take a look, an example of this, right? And we just had a great example happen with the Supreme Court Justice and Ruth Bader Ginsburg dying. Okay, so the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party, they're just mirroring the same issue. And you can see it so clearly in this example. So back in 2016, under President Obama, he had the opportunity to fill one of the Supreme Court justices, and I believe it was in spring of 2016. And the Republican Party said, oh, no, you shouldn't fill that seat. It's an election year. You should wait until after the president's elected and the new president should get to fill that seat. And there was a big argument that happened. And the Republicans, the conservatives, were trying to stop that appointment. And the Democrats, the liberals, were trying to push that through. So what happens now? Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies, and the Democratic Party is saying, oh, well, wait, it's an election year. In fact, it's really close to the election. So you wanted us to wait in 2016 and not choose a president because it's an election year. So we want you to wait, and we don't think that you should choose a Supreme Court justice until after the election. And the Republican Party is saying, oh, well, you were the ones that wanted to change the rules. You were the ones that said, oh no, the president should definitely get to pick the Supreme Court justice. So you see, it's the exact same thing. It's like just a flip-flopping of the same energy between the two of them. And they're actually both kind of acting like children around it. In fact, we see people acting like children when it comes to the division. But that's what happens when you're in that polarized energy. It's like they're having temper tantrums, and it's because of the triggers. We have to understand that things like this are basically core wounds. When we're healing with our twin flame and we're going through the triggers, we're dealing with the core wounds. When we're dealing with these things on the political level, dealing with like core wounds within the party. And I can tell you that, as a person that is very interested in history, the Supreme Court justices and how to handle that, it's been a core wound going back to the beginning of this country. So if we want to move forward as a society, we have to really open up these wounds and have a look at them. But what is going to happen is we're going to begin to see more and more issues where we can say, oh, wow, you're right. Or more and more issues where we begin to see, oh, wait, yeah, why are we just arguing about that? Because it's the same old flip-flopping. It's ego. We have to start seeing that there's union. I'm not sure if I said this or not, but as I said, I think you can't say one party's right and one party's wrong. Because what that does is it creates division in our society, division against people. Just like in your twin flame union, when you're holding on to victimizations and pointing fingers, that is holding on to separation, and that's not going to bring healing or change or union. So we have to step back. We have to see, okay, yes, we're one. We're different parties. We have different things, but we're all Americans. And how can we bridge this gap? Because the bigger picture here is not that we're fighting party to party. The bigger picture is there's people behind the government pulling the strings, and they want to keep our society in the state of division, because as long as we're divided, they get to play their games, control us, and we're not paying any attention to what they're doing. But once we start seeing unity, and once we start coming together and working together, then we begin to see what's really going on behind the scenes. Just like when you're twins and you start coming together, and you start coming together in union, even it just spiritual union, and you let go of the division mentality, you start to see all these bigger pictures, right? That's when you surrender. That's when you let go. That's when you begin to trust the universe that everything's working out just as planned, and that you don't need to keep fighting amongst each other, as amongst the two of you, and having this back and forth. You just let it go, and you just let it go to a higher power, and try your best to stay in your heart. And that's what we really need to do now. If we can just take a moment to just understand that each party is playing a role, it's playing a purpose in the change and the ascension process, then hopefully that will take some of the blame off each other. And we have to begin to try to understand the other person's perspective. Even if you can't see their perspective from where you are right now, if you can just try to listen to what the other person is saying or why they feel that way, even if you don't agree with it, even if you want to argue with them, what really helps with this, just like in your twin flame journey, right? If you just listen with all your energy, and don't try to make an argument of it. But when we just listen, we try to have compassion, that begins to open doors for us to have new understanding, for us to have that higher perspective, and to begin to see we're all humans, we're all one. We all just want love and happiness and the pursuit of freedom. So, and also these things take time. I hear it from a lot of people that they're tired of this. They don't want to be in this energy. They just want to be through it. It's just like the twin flame journey. You don't want to go through all the healing. You want to skip from, meeting to union. But we can't until we do the inner work, because ultimately everything is energy. And when the energy is polarized, you're just butting heads. Same thing here. The energy is polarized. Everyone's just butting heads until we begin to do that healing work. So it's really important not to get caught up in hatred right now for anybody. Yes, you're going to get triggered. Yes, you're going to get angry. We all are, and you might have your moments, and it's okay to have that moment and then pick yourself up, forgive yourself, and move on from it. But if we focus on the hatred, we're creating hatred. And we all know that. We all have all these spiritual principles that we've learned through our awakening for years and years and years. And that's why, my guides want me to talk about this with you, because they want you to see why you've been on this twin flame journey. Because this twin flame journey has been preparing you to be on this journey, the ascension journey, and elevating the energy of Earth. We know that as twins, we all promised to come here and do this. And now we're actually getting a chance to do it. This is what we've all been waiting for. But we have to remember our spiritual principles and apply them to this, even though we're getting triggered just like we did at the very beginning of our journey. And what you focus on is what you create. And we are powerful creators right now more than ever before. And so when I say detach, I'm not saying detach from, like if social justice, social reform is important for you, and this is actually important for both sides. I want to make that clear. Both sides are fighting for social justice and freedoms. It's that polarization. Just both sides are doing it in two different ways. And those two different ways are really important. You've got to use those two different ways to bridge the gap. So, I forgot what I was saying. So yeah, we can't get caught up in the negative energy. And we have to remember that we may be picking up on things from the collective. Oh, I know. So when I say detach, I'm not saying detach from, what you're trying to create as far as bettering this world. What I'm saying is know what you want and then detach from it. Detach about how it's going to show up here. This is where that twin flame trust comes in. Just like we trust in that journey, we have to trust in this journey. And we have to trust that the angels have all of this under control. But I posted an article about trust a couple days ago because my guides are telling me it's time to trust in everything in every way. Not to get caught up in the past, the pain, the hatred, the anger, the disagreement. It can look that way in the 3D, but you know that there's a happy ending to this movie. At least that's what I focus on. I don't get caught up in, what's going to be, and I don't ever even think of negative possibilities happening. I know that this is all leading us to someplace positive. So find the love for each other and remember that we are the front lines of this battle right now. We have more power here than we know. And Donald Trump, of course, many people see him as being such a polarizer. And there's a reason behind that. People have asked me, Marla, you say Donald Trump is helping this change, but all I see him doing is bringing division. How can he be good for us if he's not bringing us together? Okay, well, guess what? When we talk about things like that, we're in our projections. This is another area that's highly polarizing. So you're going to see half the people, right? Sorry, it's hard to see from here. Half the people see Donald Trump one way because of their projections. The other half of the people see him another way because of their projections. Which one is right? Well, remember, the energy on the table is neutral. Okay, so ultimately we can see, and I know some of you will argue with me, but if you just bear with me a minute, if you see his energy as neutral and try to understand what Donald Trump's purpose is here, it's going to help you maybe understand and detach from it. So Donald Trump cannot bring us unity. Why? Because we're polarized. Is he the reason that we're polarized? No. We've always been polarized. These parties have been polarized since this country started. There were arguments under George Washington's presidency about the direction this country was going and about the parties. And I think all of the early presidents talked about the danger of a two-party system and how polarizing that could be for this country. So it's not Donald Trump's fault that we're polarized and divided between party lines. Again, if anything, that has to do with the cabal behind the scenes. But what Donald Trump is a catalyst to help us remove the polarities. And that, I think, is why many people are behind Donald Trump. It's why I support Donald Trump, because I see that what he's doing is creating the shift. Because, yes, the polarization of the parties was coming out more and more and more, but as soon as he started running for office, right, the polarization started really getting triggered. But remember, we can't create unity if we can't see that we both have the same dream, if we feel like we're at odds with each other. Because when you feel like you're at odds, you're always in your ego trying to get your needs met or going into victimization modes. So right now, he's a catalyst. And in that sense, he's doing his role to perfection. Okay, so you can't judge Donald Trump for doing something that he's not meant to be doing right now and then failing at it. He's actually doing a great job of what he's here to do. Now, when this polarization shifts and what's going to happen after that, we don't know, right? We don't know how soon we're going to get to a point where we start leaving the division behind and start coming closer into unity consciousness. And without that time frame, it's hard to say what role President Trump is going to have. Now, it will be, he's not the only catalyst. There are other catalysts. And, if Joe Biden wins the election, then he will be the new catalyst to help us understand our polarity. But I think if you and what I tried to show when I did my astrology reading of Donald Trump, I tried to present it in a neutral way to help people on both sides see that, well, even if you don't like him, he's a catalyst for change. And even though you don't like his behaviors, and, believe me, I went through a time period where I really did not like him and his behavior really bothered me. But I've cleared that. If you understand that he does things the way he does because he's supposed to trigger the crap out of all of us, then maybe you can begin to appreciate him more. And of course, there's other catalysts on the other side. So he's not the only one, but he has really become the central figure in this polarization process that we're going through. But detach from it. Again, when you detach, it doesn't mean that you don't have a preferred option or a preferred timeline of what you want to happen. But ultimately, we have to surrender. Just like in the twin flame journey, we don't know how everything's going to go down. We don't know how the change is coming. We have to surrender. We have to go with the flow, and we have to trust. This is going to be especially important as we move towards the election, because the election is going to be tense, and there's going to be a lot of things happening around it, and people around us are going to be going crazy. So it's really helpful if we, as some of the frontline warriors out there, can hold the state of balance as best as possible. And I guess ultimately that's what I mean from detach. I mean, stay in a place of balance and do your best to try and see through both sides and see what their perspective is. But also know that it's through this polarization energy that this new third party is going to rise up, that I talked about in my channeled message from the Founding Fathers. Now, I know there are lots of third parties out there already, and that there are new third party forming right now. But this is going to be the third party. Okay, it's not like, well, there may be other parties that come along too that gain some traction, but I don't think we've seen this third party start to develop yet, although I will say I do feel that there's an energy of this happening. I'll just say I don't see it as being formally organized at this point, but when it begins to really develop more fully and all sides begin to see it, the third party will begin to pull people from all parties. And that is really where we're going to start creating this sense of unity and change. So thank you so much, guys. I hope that this helped you see this in maybe a different way, and maybe you'll think about things with a little bit different perspective. If you would like a personal reading with me, or you'd like to visit my blog, it is twinstrology.com. Thank you so much. Sending you all a lot of love, and I'll speak to you soon.